I found it. I can't believe it. So I've been keeping a journal, doing 3 pages a day, every single day, day in and day out, just like Julia Cameron talks about in her book, The Artist's Way. And I started on December 26, 2017. You can see it. That's proof. This is my very, very first journal. I'm so excited about this. I don't know why, I just am. So for those of you that have been wondering, like, what does it mean to keep a journal all these years? Like, if you take a look at all these journals I have, I mean, I have like tons of these books, like everywhere in this box, like through 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. Like, it's crazy, like how many journal books that I have. It's just like crazy, crazy. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, what do you talk about? Well, you talk about the things that are bothering you, the things that you're wondering about, the things that maybe you're hopeful about in the future, things that are pissing you off, things that you are not so happy and bright and Pollyanna about, maybe things that you're negative about, things that are bothering you, people that you need to forgive. Maybe talk about gratitude, which is a really nice way of manifesting and attracting things in your life. So I talk about everything. Like, a lot of times I just do check-in. So in the very, very beginning, let me go with one of my newer journal books here, the one that I'm on right now, which is this one. And like every single morning I check in with myself. And I talk about like how I feel. Like, I'll say, but usually start off with hello, and then happy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day it is. And then I'll ask, how do you feel today? Did you get enough rest? What's going on? Like, are you worried about anything? Is anything bothering you? And so that's how I start the stream of consciousness in my journal writing every single day. And then what usually ends up happening, and a lot of people ask me this, like, what do you get out of writing this journal every single day? And the answer is I've made a lot of connections, a lot of negative, I guess, paths that I've been taking in my life. For example, I'll be on a negative path, a negative trajectory of some kind. And usually my journal writing will help point that out. Like, there's something wrong, something doesn't feel right, or you're not doing something correctly. And it's time to kind of recorrect your course. A lot of times we're so inundated with information. There's just information that's bombarding us at all times, from social media, the TV, the radio, everywhere that you go. You are being bombarded by massive amounts of information. Much of it is not positive. Much of it is negative. And so it doesn't give you enough time to process what's really going on in society, let alone your life. And if you think about it, the only thing that really even matters is your life and your family, right? And so you're out there wandering around, kind of floundering around life without much of a direction, without much of a thought process on what's really happening, because much of the thought processes that you don't even realize are happening is a mass consciousness thought process. So the thoughts you think you're thinking are really not your thoughts. They're like the mass consciousness thoughts of society and the world at large. So you have to be careful, because if you think you're thinking a certain way, much of the time it's somebody else's thought process that's just been recessed into your brain at some point. So the only way I know how to tap into what you yourself, what you are thinking, right, is to tap into what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And you can only do that on a daily dose of your journal writing. So with that said, how do you start writing a journal? Well, I strongly recommend you first read the book by Julia Cameron called The Artist's Way. And she talks about how to do your 3 pages, your 3 morning pages. And so it did not matter whether I was on death's door or on an airplane or whatever the case may be. I was always religiously doing my pages, my 3 pages a day. Sometimes, though, I'll be honest with you, sometimes it happened late at night because I was on a flight all day and I just, or I was sick or whatever the case may be. And it just was whenever I could squeeze it in. So there's no real rule on when you have to do your 3 pages. You can very well do them at night if you want. But you do need to be consistent if you want to tap into who you are. Because again, society has already preliminarily programmed you into who you are, and they're already putting these messages and these thoughts in your brain, inadvertently, of course, about what to think, what to feel, and how to speak and when not to speak. And you need to understand how to tap into who you are. And the only way I know how to do it is to keep a daily journal. And so let's talk about some of the changes that I was able to make. So it's crazy because when I started these journals many, many years ago, as you know, December 26, 2017, a lot has changed. Like literally everything in my life shifted from doing these journals. And so I realized that I made a lot of connections with the negative thought process that I had, the very limiting belief systems that I had, and certain things that I wasn't making a connection with. Like there's a lot of things that happen in your childhood, right? That you are just completely clueless as to how it affects your current life the way it is today. But believe it or not, you have a lot of limitations dating back to your childhood. You have a lot of things, negative things that probably happened to you. Maybe adults telling you that you're going to be a useless piece of crap for the rest of your life, or whatever the case may be. And you buried those memories, decades ago, and those are the same things that are currently affecting you right now and affecting your performance and your ability to be successful, for example. So I finally made this one connection. It's like, this is so silly. You're going to think this is so dumb, Monica, but it's really a connection I made. So I made this connection where every single time my business became massively successful, I would upsize my office right away. And then I would take on more staff. And then all of a sudden I'd start to freak out, like, oh no, I have all these extra expenses. Like what am I going to do? Am I going to be able to sustain this? And all of a sudden I would start to sabotage the whole business. I would sabotage my staff, and I would want to immediately downsize, and I'd lose my lease. And this would happen over and over again. And at first I would make these really lame excuses like, oh, it must have been the bad feng shui of that office. Like it must have been a bad luck location. And that's why my business just completely collapsed, or whatever the case was. And it was like the same repeat over and over again. And if I told you how many times I moved offices and upsized, you'd think I would need my head examined. So I can't even tell you, but just in California alone, I'm thinking I had at least 12 or 13 offices in the span of maybe about 12 or 13 years, which is ridiculous, because if you know anything about commercial leases, you know that usually a commercial lease is between 3 and 5 years. It's not like an apartment lease or a house lease. It's a 3 to 5 year lease. And I would be breaking all these leases and have to pay all this excessive amount of money to get out of these leases, and all this excessive amount of money to move, and just all this. It was just ridiculous. And I didn't make that connection. I mean, you might be thinking, duh, anybody with a half a brain can figure that out. But it was through these journaling exercises that allowed me to make that connection, like these self-sabotage, little things that I was doing to make that connection. Now, my most recent one was the connection that I made where I was too all over the board. Like I was wanting to do all these different business opportunities and ideas that I have, and realizing that I'm not focused. And I realized, what was the time in my life that I liked about myself the most, like professionally? Like when was that? And I dated it back to around 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. 2012 is when I started to really kind of fly off the handle and really started to lose my focus. But it was 2010, 2011, and I appreciated the fact that I really loved how focused I was. Like everything was just all on point with one particular profession that I wanted to dedicate my life to. And I asked myself, what did that feel like? What did that look like? How were you? Like, what were you doing? And it was all with my real estate training stuff. It was all with my real estate investing stuff. And it was all with a specific kind of real estate. And I just really loved the person that I was back then. And so I'm like, how can we take the best parts of ourselves from 2010, 2011 and kind of reinvent ourselves for now into a better version of that? And so it was through, I can't tell you how powerful these journals are, because it was through the power of this journaling that I was able to make this self-discovery. And you'll be able to do much the same too. Like if you decide that you want to do these 3 pages a day, and again, they could be morning pages, they could be evening pages, whatever the case may be, but you're going to find that when you do these and you take your journaling exercises seriously, and it's kind of a spiritual component, meaning that, like the way I do it, for example, I'll meditate for maybe 3 to 5 minutes a day. I can't handle more than that, quite honestly. My mind is way too busy. And then this will be my hybrid meditation, where I'm kind of meditating and journaling at the same time. So I consider this very much a meditation, and you can consider it the same as well. And so what I'll do is I'll just really start to get into the inner world of who I am and who I am right now and who I want to be in the future. And then I start to strategize with whatever the subconscious mind or my higher self is coming up with. I'll start to, all of a sudden, it's almost like automatic writing, where there'll be some strategies that will come out of this that I can now use into the real world to be able to help facilitate some more success in my life. So, for me, it was just helping me get back on the focused track, helping me stop being all over the place, helping me kind of hone in on who I am and kind of disconnect from the rest of the world and all the negativity on social media, all the negativity on the news, and all the stuff that you see and hear all the time, and disallowing the mass population and the conglomerate, conspiracy, whatever it is that you want to call it, that really wants to inject us with this life of fear and these thoughts of fear, and kind of disconnecting from that outer world and really tapping into the inner world to have what I call true power. That's when you have genuine, authentic, true power, is when you can actually start to tap into yourself. So I don't know if you noticed, but I use like different pen colors. I'll have a bunch of different pen colors. Maybe you don't like doing that, or I just like to change it up a little bit. I like to clip things out of my desktop calendar that I find are interesting. And then every single time I start a journal, I will actually pick a color. Usually it's a different cover color than the time before. And each one will last me about 4 months, a little bit more than 4 months. And so when I pick a new color, I will tell the journal what the color is for. So for example, it says the color black symbolizes death for rebirth to follow. So I will have like specific little things that I will have for this. Like for example, this purple one says the color purple symbolizes prosperity and magic. So even if you have the same color journal cover, you can have like different things that it means. Like for example, this red one here, it says the color red symbolizes power and fire as I enter a new phase in life. Okay, but then you'll notice more recently I have a red one, and it says the color red signifies reclaiming power. So it's about power, obviously, but I don't ever use the same color cover like 2 journals in a row. I just think that that's weird, but you can do whatever the hell you want to do. So the question might be, do you have to read any of this stuff? The answer is no. I've never read a single page in any one of these journals since I started back in 2017, and you don't have to either. I'm just imagining one day I'm going to die. My daughter's going to find several boxes of journals and maybe decide to go through some of them and cry her eyeballs out as she's reading, or maybe not. Maybe she'll just end up throwing them in a dumpster somewhere, or maybe they'll end up, in a fire in a house, or a storage fire. I don't have any idea what's going to happen to these journals, but the point is, it's not about you reading it later and collecting data and information for a later date. It's about you making this spiritual transformation, moving forward to where you can find out who the best version of you is. And the only way to do that is to start unlocking some of the stuff that's happening, not only in your physiology, meaning your brain, but also in your larger spiritual self as well. And the only way I know how to do that is to actually have a daily, committed, disciplined focus on yourself that you give to yourself. This is a gift that you give to yourself. Every single day, you're gifting yourself with the time that you can focus on yourself, because let me tell you, society has their own idea on what you should think, feel, and do, right? And so far it's been working, because so many people are droning around in the world, pitter-pattering around, thinking they're making their own decisions, and you're not making your own decisions. If you think you're high on crack, because you're not. So the reality is, the only way you can really start to understand who you are and to understand you making your own decisions in life is to really hone in on who you are and to give yourself the time to process, things that happen in the world. Like maybe there's a new business idea and maybe you tried it and it didn't work. Well, why don't you hone in internally on why you think it didn't work? And maybe it wasn't you at all. Maybe the business plan just sucked, right? But society will have you think, oh, you just weren't prepared enough. You're not smart enough. You're not this or that. And you might have halted an additional opportunity of trying a new business just in the mere fact that you convinced yourself that you were not smart enough, or you just didn't have enough skills or whatever. And in reality, it was just the business plan that sucked, or maybe the business plan just wasn't for you, right? And the only way you're going to ever tap into these kinds of thoughts is by creating these journals and going through kind of a subconscious meditative state as you journal. This is part of the reason why I like the morning pages instead of making them the evening pages, because in the morning you're kind of sometimes in that state between being asleep and being awake, but in the meditative state, and you're more tapped into your subconscious mind at that time. which means then you'll be able to get more ideas. So in addition to you kind of working out the details of how you are, how you feel, like checking in, you can then say, okay, well, I really need help with this, or I'd really love it if I could get some assistance or help with figuring out my next multi-million-dollar business idea, or whatever the case may be. And then you just start to listen, and you'll start to, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, wait, that seems like a really good, like your subconscious mind will start coming up with ideas. And if it doesn't right then and there, then the ideas will come later that day, or maybe the next day. You'll start to have these ideas that'll flood in because you've made it very clear in writing, which is, by the way, almost like chiseling in stone, what it is that you want in life. And it allows you to, in the very least, become a whole hell of a lot more focused than you ever thought imaginable. So back to when I was shifting and changing all these different businesses and trying to think about what my best self was, which was 2010, 2011, it allowed me to finally click into place that was the place in my life I felt most confident, most successful, most proud of myself. And so I was able to now facilitate a new plan to get me to where I was, but at the same time have the newest version of myself. So it's almost like Monica Main 2.0. And I'm just really excited about it. And if it wasn't for these journaling exercises that I do every single day, I don't know that I would have ever made that connection, because you have to understand the way life is right now, there is so much information pounding at you daily. You don't even have enough time to process that information. Like, when was the last time you ever laid in the grass and looked at, the stars at night, or looked at the clouds during the day and just kind of thought about stuff and processed stuff? Like, probably not for many years. When was the last time you took a walk in a park and fed some pigeons and just sat there for an hour just to process stuff? Like, probably never. Like, we don't give ourselves that opportunity because of how busy life has become. And you have to now take a step back if you really want to have control and power over your own life. You have to take that control and power back. And the only way I know how to do that is to have this self-reflective time for yourself every single day, religiously, 3 pages a day, and to give yourself that time to process, that time to tap into yourself, that time to figure things out for yourself, the time that you never ever give to yourself because you're scrolling on your phone or doing whatever you do all day and you're not processing anything. And that's unfortunate, because your brain and your soul is slowly but surely dying because you're not allowing yourself to live, unfortunately. So these pages will allow you to not only focus, but you'll then be able to live in a way that you never thought possible. So if you thought that this was excitingly happy and healthy for you and you loved the content, please give me a thumbs up. That helps me out a lot, as well as subscribe to my channel, because I have a lot more videos just like this, just for you, to help you on your path of wealth building success. And so this is Monica Main signing off, and I will see you in the next video.